we'll begin our work session. This is the work session February the 12th for our recess meeting of February the 16th to be held next Tuesday, assuming we can all come into work based on the weather that we're supposed to be having. So I'll call this meeting to order. We do not have a quorum, and a quorum is not necessary for a work session. So I have Alderman Beatty with me, and others may come in at any point in time. I'm assuming we have no one on the phone.
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. In that case, what we'll do first is we have Toby Sanford, who has been, where'd he go? There he is, who has been kind enough to come from the Golden Triangle Planning and Development District to give us a briefing on redistricting. And Alderman Sistrunk has joined us. So
Alderman
the
Vaughn's right behind me.
Who is?
Alderman Vaughn.
Alderman Vaughn, okay, all right. So Mr. Sanford is going to provide us with a PowerPoint, and we'll let him take over. So Toby, the floor is yours.
All right. I think most of you all know me. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Alderman Vaughn.
How's everybody?
Doing good.
I'm good. Baby.
Alderman Vaughn, see, come on in here.
Oh, everything.
And Toby, if you want to, in order to be heard, you can take off your mask if you want.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I think most of you know me. My name is Toby Sanford. I'm the GIS manager of the Planning and Development District. Those that don't know me, I've been there 17 years. We do quite a bit of work in mapping for the city. We do your addresses, stuff for the firefighters. We map fire hydrants, those kind of things. Anything to do with mapping. Okay. Now it's time to talk about redistricting. That's my colleague Dave Alexander. Some of y'all may know Dave. The census has been conducted in a year ending in 0 since 1790. Some of this stuff y'all may already know, but it will just be a little refresher. By Article 1, Section 2. The 2020 census, 4 million census workers assisted the Census Bureau in counting more than 330 million people and 140 million housing units. Census Geography, to give you all a little background about how the census counts people. This will help you understand more about how redistricting works and where people live, and this is where they're counted. The largest level of census geography is called the census tract. It's huge. It's a very large area. The census block group splits up that census tract into 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how big it is, and the population of it, block groups. And then inside each one of those block groups is a census block. And that is the lowest level of census geography. It's that census block where they actually count 10 people. Or all the information are no people. There are census blocks that are completely empty. So this is your census tract, Octavia County. You can see that is a very large tract. That is a large tract, but your tract size is governed by the population within it. There's a certain amount of people that you want in a tract, and that's what they try to fit. So there's less people living in Octavia County down here than there are up here.
Do you get to define those, Toby, or
I do
does the
not.
government
The
does?
Census Bureau defines them. They sure do. They create their own tracts. You can see the city of Starkville is broken into 1, 2, 3, 4 tracts, and they're smaller, but the population is going to be about consistent between each one of these tracts. These are your block groups. So this census tract is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4 block groups. This census tract 950,700, that entire tract has a population of 7,820, but it is broken into 5 different block groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are your census blocks. And usually a census block is going to follow a natural boundary. That's going to be a creek. There's a road here, it's going to follow that road. You can see this little census block. And then some blocks are bigger than other blocks. But if they're in 0 population, they do make larger blocks than other blocks. If they're really condensed, they change. So you can see the population of this block right here. I don't know how that keeps changing.
It's a touch screen, so. It's a touch screen every time.
It is. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
We're fancy.
That is fancy. You can see there's 12 people in there, 6 people in there, 2 people in this one. You can see the house. There's a house here, and there's probably another house in there, or there's 2 people living in that house, total population. Now, this is 2010 census data. We don't have the 2020 yet. We'll get to that. But there's 0, so you can kind of see how they count people, and it's those blocks that make up our redistricting. These are your estimates. July 1st, 2019, they created estimates pretty much for every city and county in our area. They do estimates depending on size. I think some sizes get them every 3 years, some get them every 5 years, but in 2019, we did get an estimate. And then I am comparing it to the 2010 census population. So we find Starkville, which is right here, they're saying in 2010, we were 23,888. Right now, and this is not considering your annexation, because it is not part of what your city is yet. Now, once you do add that annexation, that will increase the population of the city more, and it's going to increase it more than the 2020 census, because the 2020 census is going to be based on your current geographic lines. That other is not part of your city yet. So when they release those numbers, whatever is added to the city will have to be added to the population by whoever does the redistricting. But they're saying you're going to raise up to 25,653. That's their estimate as of July 1st, 2019. If you do look at this trend, all these other cities are losing people. The only city in this list that's gaining people is the city of Starkville.
Yes, and that is because we are the place to be.
If you look at the county, every county is losing people except for one county.
And they're all
It's
coming to
Oklahoma
Starkville
County.
within the county.
That's right, and they're saying we're going to gain about 1,916 people countywide, but 1,765 of those, estimate-wise, are saying they're in the city of Starkville.
That's without counting the annexation.
That's without counting the annexation. That's right, we can't count it yet. I could give you, estimates don't tell you blocks, it tells you countywide. This is how many people we think are moving in or moving out. So until they release those 2020 numbers, we won't know that. Why do we have to redistrict in the first place? It all goes back to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, one man, one vote. The principle says that the most populous district and the least populous district cannot exceed a max variance of 10%. And I'll go over what a variance is, how we figure those variances here in a minute. But Section 2, one man, one vote, the variance of the least populous and the most populous cannot exceed 10%. So I made up a fake city here. Let's say I have a city of 1,000 people and it has 5 districts. The first thing you do when they send you these numbers is you got to figure out the ideal number. That ideal number is how many districts you have in your total population. You divide that total population by how many, and that gives you, if it was an ideal world, how many people would be living in each district. Well, 1,000, 5, we have 7, so that would change here, but we're just by 5 is 200. Ideally, you want 200 people living per district.
And these are people, not voters.
These are people. You redistrict on total count. The reason you do that is there's a 15-year-old that can't vote right now, but
within
in
that
5
10
years, or 3 years, he will be able to. So you have to count total population for district size. Now, we do compute voter population on the back end. To give you an idea, this is your voting population age, percentages, and this is your total population age. But redistricting is figured on total population. If we had 100,000 people in this city, it would be 20,000 people per district would be your ideal number. What you do is you create that benchmark plan. That benchmark plan is the newest census data, which will be 2020, and your current legal district lines. We will find out the new population per current districts. That'll tell you how many people live with this new census data in Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4. So the max variance. It's a probability thing. The variance is a measure of how far a set of numbers is spread out on a number line. It describes how far the numbers lie from the mean, from that expected ideal number. So I made this city up. We got these 5, and I just randomly put people in each one. So District 1, you can see, has 275, 200, 275, and 250. You have to figure out this deviation. That tells me how far away that district is from that ideal number. But District 1 has 75 too many people. District 2 and 3 are 0. They're actually perfect. They're good the way they sit. District 4 is in the hole 125 people. District 5 has too many people, 50 over. So you create that variance, and that variance is just the deviation times 100% divided by that ideal. So we figure this out. That tells us by using that formula, that District 1 is 37.5% above that 200. District 4 is below negative 62.5. You add them together, forgetting about the negative, so we take the absolute value of 62.5. That's a math term. You'll remember absolute value. And it's 100%. My made-up city is 100% out of deviation, and that is breaking federal law if this was a real city. So I created a plan that just moved people around. Now this is simple. I'm not moving these lines, and these are just total populations, but you can see that I got them all closer to 200. 1 is now the most populated, 3 is now the least populated. You add those two together, 8%. That plan is not breaking federal law. We're under that 10% mark. So if the benchmark plan is below that 10%, you do not have to redistrict if you don't want to. If they come in with these numbers, and the city of Starkville is just about guaranteed to have to, especially gaining 1,700 people and the annexation, yeah, you're going to have to move some lines around. But it is free for us to tell you whether you do or don't have to. That part of the plan is either I look at it and I tell you you do have to or you don't have to. Now, even if you don't have to redistrict, let's say some miracle, they all left the city or moved to the city uniformly, and we don't have to redistrict. Well, you still could. There's no reason. You can still move some lines around if you wanted to. In fact, the city aldermen could redistrict every year if they wanted to. But there's no reason to because you're redistricting on the same numbers every time you do it. You have to redistrict on that decennial census data. So frequently asked questions, when will our numbers be released? And that's the most asked question, and honestly, we don't know. 10 years ago, we got them the end of April. This time, I'm not expecting them until June or July. And they don't give them to us until after reapportionment, and they haven't done that yet. So COVID pushed all this stuff back. All these dates that the census tries to hit, it pushed them back. So I don't believe these numbers will be released till June, July. Now, I could be wrong. They could be released in April, like they're saying, but all the people that I'm talking to are saying don't expect that. It's probably going to be more of a June, July thing.
What's the timeline on redistricting once you get your numbers?
A timely manner. There's no set, you have 6 months
So we
to get this
conceivably, good, we may not have to do two annexations, two
You may not,
redistricting
if you
then.
wait till after your court
Annexation.
case is over. Because the Secretary of State's already said that
Yeah.
since this is a city election year, you're going to run on your old lines. We're not
Right.
going to pressure y'all to jump in here and get a plan made. Because as soon as we get that plan done, and I figure out everybody that moved from one ward to another ward, you have to go over there to the circuit clerk's office, and the voter roll has to be updated for that to be in effect at all, for it to show up on a level. So, and that takes time.
Well, for us to
That's
do
not
it
an
once is
overnight
much better
thing.
than.
Cheryl over there, she's good, but if I give her a list of this thick, that those are all, and ranges have to be updated, that address library has to be fixed, and that kind of thing. So it's a step by step, but
Good.
honestly, it's a timely manner. There's no
Excellent.
set.
That's
No,
good.
you don't want to drag
It's
your
good
feet
news
on
for
it.
us.
That's right. You
Is
want
it-
to drag your feet on it, but you want
Right.
to show that we are trying to do something about it.
Is it left up to the individual to make sure they go over there and make sure their address is changed?
Well, they can. I mean, you can check and make sure, figure out what all your political district info is, and then Cheryl can tell you they send you a voter card that tells you actually what House, Senate, Supervisor, Ward, and all that, and you definitely could check.
My experience is people don't always believe that. I've always been in Ward 2. What do you mean I'm in Ward 3
That's
now or
right.
something?
That's right. Anybody that does get moved will get a new registration card. They will be mailed a card saying that you moved from one ward to another, or one supervisor to another, or any political district change. And this is important, you all will want to know this, we are currently not under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. That means we do not need Department of Justice pre-clearance on any plan we create. But there is legislation that has been sent from the House to the Senate that has not been voted on or taken any measures on that would put us back under Section 5.
Us only?
Correct.
Mississippi only?
No, this is federal,
Federal, okay,
federal level.
okay.
It would be whoever they said should go back under it.
Yeah.
So it could be one place or
It could be, that's right.
hundreds of
That's
places.
right, but right now, there is legislation to put Mississippi, and I'm sure some other states around us back under that umbrella of having to have Department of Justice preclearance. And I'll go over what the steps are depending on which one we have to do. If we have no preclearance, and what that preclearance is just somebody standing there looking over your shoulder, making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. Now, we're going to do what we're supposed to do, whether somebody's looking over my shoulder or not. I'm going to do the right thing. We're going to do it right. Without preclearance, you create that plan that puts your max variance under that 10%. You have a public hearing. It is recommended, not required, but we'll have a public hearing if I'm doing your redistricting. You adopt those new district lines. You create that written description of the districts that describes where they are and their boundaries and their lines. You publish those maps and description in the paper. Provide that data to the circuit clerk, and the voter roll precincts are updated, and that's it. There are no more steps. If preclearance is needed, you have to get that plan under 10%. You have to have 2 public hearings. You adopt the new district lines. You create the written description. You create the 28 CFR Section 5 document to send to the Department of Justice and wait on preclearance. Now, when you send it to them, the day they get it, they have 60 days to look at it. And if they wait until the 59th day and have one question, that tacks on another 60 days. So you're the possibility of 120 days of waiting to see if your plan is going to pass muster or not. You publish those maps and descriptions in the paper after you get your preclearance, and then provide the data to the circuit clerk to update the voter roll.
So assuming everything went smoothly and the DOJ didn't have any question, the real difference is the number of public hearings
That's right.
and then having to wait that
And
60 days.
That's a very thick document. I don't remember. We did 16 plans 10 years ago, which y'all were one of them, and we got preclearance on all of them. And they did call and have some questions here and there. Some they gave preclearance without any questions because it's just straightforward. There's some cities that are small enough, like Euphoria, where as long as all the numbers line up and it looks like you abided by all the federal laws, then they don't have any problems with it. But those would be the 2 separate steps. Who has I get this question a lot, who has the authority to change these lines? Well, the supervisors have their district lines. They're responsible for their district. Justice Court is also the county supervisors. School boards, they do their own. But usually a school board, if it has 5 districts, will follow especially if it's countywide, will follow your supervisor district lines because they're already fixed. They're under that 10%, and if they're good enough for the supervisors, they're good enough for the school board. But y'all have the responsibility for the cities as city aldermen. And that is it. That was quick and dirty, right?
All right, any lingering questions? Let's see, Alderman Sister, do you have anything?
I think I got all mine. Thank
Asking as
you.
you were going along, Alderman Bate. Okay, Alderman Vaughn.
So that's what to expect. I mean, we really won't know anything until the numbers are released.
Okay.
And y'all are a little bit more special case with your annexation.
Yeah.
But it's not, we just have to wait on numbers and wait on your annexation. And honestly, if you can, I would wait to do it one time once your annexation is approved.
Yeah.
And then redistrict. And I can't imagine a judge if you sat down and told him we could redistrict what the current lines are, but you're going to make me do it twice because as soon as this annexation, if it does go in, I'm going to have to do it again because you're adding population to the city. And that it doesn't take much population. I can't remember 100%, but I think the city was somewhere around 8% deviation to the plan that was adopted. It was 7, 8. I could be wrong, but that doesn't leave you much leeway. The closer you are to a max variance of 0%, the more wiggle room you have for populations to grow and shrink without having to redistrict.
But it only takes one subdivision to throw that out of,
That's
one
right.
new subdivision to
That's
throw
right.
that out of
Or
kilter.
one place that makes your population in this area go up, or a bunch of people over here moving out, and then that guarantees you.
Okay.
Now, I did bring with me, and I'm going to leave it with you. I know y'all can't take any action, and I wouldn't expect you to, a contract. The price is the same as it was. I'll wait and give you both of them because this is as it was 10 years ago. Now, how often does that happen? Something not changed in 10 years, but it's the exact same price we had 10 years ago. And it's the exact same contract, just with the dates changed and a few things added in there about if preclearance. Because right now, we don't have to have preclearance. We could do this and then get it done and get all our numbers right. But if they put us under preclearance tomorrow, well, then that changes everything. Once you go into a contract, I have guidelines that there's two motions, a motion to go into contract with whoever, and then a motion for this guidelines, and I'm going to read them to you. And it's whereas the city of Starkville, all that information. But our first guideline is the difference in the population between the least populous and the most populous district shall not exceed that 10%. The proposed plan shall be established in a manner that ensures fairness and effective representation of all minority groups residing in the city in compliance with sections 2 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act and all other applicable federal and state laws. District lines shall keep intact communities with established ties of common interest, association, whether historical, racial, economic, ethnic, religious, or other. Each district shall be contiguous, and that means we can't have an island of 4 over here that's not touching 4. They all have to be, you have to be able to draw a line around each district. Each district shall be compact as possible, as we can make it. Incumbents shall be separated into individual districts to the extent practical, but only if such action does not affect adherence to the primary criteria herein. And that means we're not going to district out a sitting board member out of the district that they're in. Now, I don't think this is going to happen until after your election anyway, but somebody that's qualified to run, the law does not protect them. If I have to, if it's the only way to move a line and I got to move somebody qualified in 1 into 2, all that does is immediately qualify them in 2. Now you try not to do that because you're setting yourself up for a lawsuit because it looks like the sitting alderman may be trying to move that person out that could beat them or something. You only have to worry about that if it's a factor. And then public input will be considered by the board in development of the final plan. And that would be all of our criteria. I'm going to leave this with you. And if you have any questions, I think all you know how to get a hold of me. My info is on that thing you have there.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, that's all I had to tell you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Toby. It was very kind of you to come give us a...
Yeah, I just had all these questions before they started getting a lot about when is it coming out, what do we have to do, where we're at. But hopefully that answered a lot of questions you had.
It is, and it's good news to me, because if we don't have to do it twice, then so much the better.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Good
Appreciate
job.
it.
Good to see you, Toby.
Yes. And if y'all need something, you know where I'm at.
All right. Bye, y'all. Terry, you're up for a quick one, please. I'm not gonna make you feel that rushed, but, you know, it was intended to be brief, so go right ahead.
Just kind of bring the board up to date on the capital project that's on our plan. And it's phase 1 of a bigger plan that we're continuing to study. What we're going to talk about today is a water project that's been teed up that would be considered phase 1 that would run from Christ Street down to Tillahaw Drive, and it's about 1,300 feet. And I say that because we've actually are beginning to study all the water lines in that area from 182 up to Garrett Road. So this is a part of that main artery that goes through that. The intent of this project, and we've tracked it over the years, so we see that as an uptick in number of leaks and problems that we're having. And so what we're trying to do is address it as a part of our overall capital infrastructure plan. Currently, there are 4 water lines in place in this area that we're discussing. They range in size from a 6-inch line down to 4-inch line, and you'll look, there's four individual water lines running through that. Based under the leaks, one of them is up under the street itself. So the project, what it does is combine all 4 of those into a new 10-inch water main that you'll see on this line right here. So the 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, we will abandon, convert into one 10-inch water main, and that will be serving the whole area. Much more efficient, much better, and address those leaks that we've talked about. The good part about this one, we're also addressing it, working with the city and the street department, It will be falling up under the existing sidewalk, which is in real state of need right now. And so the path of the new line would fall up under the sidewalk. There's a 4-foot sidewalk now. This project allows us to go to a 5-foot sidewalk. And so overall, that gives us, and of course from the utilities, the way us putting it down, we'll be picking up in our project 4/5 of that project, and in working with the city engineer and the city, that 1/5 will become part of the city. But then when we're through, you'll have a nice sidewalk, all requirements met. So overall, that's the project. Now our timeline, we're hoping to start, and some things were on the agenda last time, dealing with pipe. This time deals with a few trees that we need to remove to be able to actually construct the project, and so it doesn't cause damage down the road. We hope to have that project started sometime first part of March. And in March, we look for about a 60-day window, so it gives you an idea of how long the project will go. So once we start, we hope we'll be through with it completed. The first phase will be completely remove the old sidewalk, break it up, put a new line in, and then come right in behind that with the new sidewalk, 60 days after that. So that puts us somewhere in the May time frame is when we would have everything back to what we consider normal. And this is only phase 1. We'll take it in steps as we can kind of progress down that as money is available. Okay?
Okay, all right.
So
And
maybe I can stop right there.
well, you can, because curiosity is killing me. Why would we put in 4 lines?
It's
Developed
an
over
indication of how
time.
the city built over time.
Goodness
So
gracious.
you would start out with 1, and there is a steel line over there. The materials that we've looked at probably dates it back into the 40s, early 50s.
Okay.
So here again, as growth came in, fire.
But about the time you got to 2, I would think you'd start thinking, I believe
Terry,
it's
Terry
time.
wasn't here. He wasn't responsible for that.
But here again, you're a good question, because I think that's what happens. And we see a lot of that in our areas, and that's why we continue to look way down the road to kind of do planning.
Yeah.
And, but that's kind of what I'd say it is.
Okay.
And this provides good fire protection, covers all the services that community is going to need from now on. And I think that was what the city intended to do in these steps. And this just kind of cleans up old stuff and gives us an opportunity to do that.
Okay. Any questions, Alderman Sister?
Yes, since this is mostly happening in a sidewalk area, this is not going to be as messy as sometimes these kind of projects do, where you have to get into people's yards and dig up. Not quite as messy.
You know.
Messy's relative.
Messy is kind of
Relative term.
it's kind of how people look at it. We'll actually be breaking the sidewalk, completely removing all of it, and then we'll trench it. But it would be outside the street, which is going to be a big thing because from a traffic perspective.
Right.
And then once we lay it back down, then it would be really cleaned up. You have a nice sidewalk on top of it. But we will be doing excavation to land the pipe in the ground. And there's going to be, if you'll notice on here, there's probably 1, 2, about 3 or 4 cuts all the way across the street. But once those are in place, it allows us not to go back onto the street when the engineering department, when they overlay. I think that makes it look a lot better. So if you ride down that street, you'll see a lot of patches. And unfortunately, we probably cause them on the water line, and we're trying to address that as well too. So
Well, and my other.
we're going to be real sensitive to the people, and we work with each one of the persons down through that area. They're aware of the project, and we'll continue to keep them engaged.
And my second is a 2-part question. Do you have a replacement plan for some of these trees that you're taking up?
Not right now. We are working. Some people in the community have offered, they would like to be a part of a volunteer.
Good.
And I'm glad Emily's here, because I think we're kind of sending it back to the beautification piece.
Great.
And that may be something other parties in town might want to participate in, a broader thing, but generally speaking, it's not. Now, there's 1 or 2 areas that we can adjust the sidewalk. We've worked on that to maybe address a tree or so, but
Okay.
Really targeting that's not part of it. We're
Okay.
trying to work that through the beautification program.
Okay.
you could say.
And the second part of that question, and this may be for Emily as much as for you, is do y'all have a list of recommended plants, trees
So
for
I'm gonna
understory?
weigh heavily on Mr. Hadlin being a landscape architect to pick appropriate tree species for that area. We're gonna meet with Dr. Rush and her husband. There's a group of citizens who want to donate trees. And this is for the trees that are gonna be in the right-of-way portion.
Right.
If citizens are wanting to put trees on their private property, we can, you know, specify species and whatnot, but it's gonna be a communication between Dr. Rush and those private citizens in terms of placement, et cetera, for those.
And a big concern would be if they grow up into power
Right.
lines.
Right, and I think we're gonna do a site visit at some point to see which areas are appropriate to have the canopy cover or need to be understory trees
Okay.
to not get to
Perfect.
the power lines.
Perfect, thank y'all.
Just to pace on vegetation and planting, it's really important to have the right species at the right location, and we try our best to kind of work around that. But this storm coming in this weekend, ice comes up, from electric utility, that's a big concern. So if we've got trees in the wrong place, it causes interruptions to everybody.
Or the wrong
We don't
tree,
think
the
about
wrong tree.
underneath, but trees planted in the wrong location can have a detrimental effect on either water and sewer, just from a root standpoint. So I'm glad Emily and we're working with that. We'll definitely provide some options
Good,
on types.
good, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Beatty, your ward, you've been in touch with the folks who are being impacted by this?
Somewhat.
Okay, well, I know the tree discussion came up, so just
Oh.
any questions of Terry or anything?
Well, I just want to make, yes, a couple. Mr. Kemp, what's the difference? What would be the distance between the edge of the curb and where the sidewalk starts? Is it going to be the same? What do we have now? What's average out there? What is
It's
it?
a couple of feet, and it ever,
I think it varies, but 3 or 4 feet, and.
And that's what we plan on kind of going back that same thing? Or what?
Well, I believe that the back of some, I believe the intent, according to Mr. Forrester, is he's planning on holding the back edge of the sidewalk, and the additional width would come closer to the.
So you just-
So that
so-
grass strip would get narrower.
So the idea of plantings in that area is probably that's going to nix,
I don't-
not everything, but a lot of stuff that
Right.
could go in that area.
We
Right.
haven't put eyes on it yet, but from a city perspective, you know, we can't dictate what trees go on private property. We can provide information and education for those who choose to plant on private property.
Now, does our sidewalk on the back side of the sidewalk, how far would to the right of way?
As forward, as Edward said, our intent is to kind of stay where that back of the sidewalk is and move that within the 5 foot.
Is that where our current right of way is?
Where would our right of way be?
It's close to that.
Okay.
That's right.
But it does vary.
The other comment I want to make, or I comment, I'll give Mr. Kemp to weigh in on this, is that the construction of this would not be any more intrusive than what was done at Pleasant Acres as far as digging and trenching and that kind of stuff, right?
No,
I
we're,
mean, Pleasant Acres went through an ordeal, but they got a beautiful new, they got all new underground infrastructure and new streets and stuff, and that stuff planted back, and I don't expect anybody down there would go back and say, no, let's don't do that, so.
no, I think you're right. We talked about that when Pleasant Acres, a totally different type situation. We had a lot of sewer work in that. We went extremely deep. Pipes are much larger. We're talking about 1 10-inch pipe here. And so you can kind of visualize the area of the existing sidewalk. That's going to be disturbed, and we'll kind of extend it out a little bit. So you've got 4 feet, which is kind of that corridor that we'll be running this new pipe through. But I do think, here again, weather is a big part of everything that we do. But if we can get in, contractors are ready to roll, we can get this out in about 60 days. And so it's going to be a little hindrance of people walking up and down the sidewalk piece. But other than that, I think we'll get it back pretty quick and clean. And nice sidewalk looks finished. And we worked real closely with Edward and the engineering department to make sure it meets all the requirements of the sidewalk, I guess you could say. And if you've been down that road, and of course I know you have all of them, it's crumbled, it's got cracks in it, and a lot of it's
75, 80 years
because of things we've got to get rid of. I mean, you know, it's just they're bucking and breaks, and so hopefully the neighborhood will really like it. From a water supply, I know it's going to be a great thing. So.
And the other component of that is fire protection. The fact that you could scale it to a 10-inch, scale it to a 10-inch fire main is significant. In your I won't say so much, y'all engineer static pressure, but capacity of flow with a 10-inch versus a 6-inch line. And I mean, with a major structure fire in that part of town, the difference between having a 10-inch line and a 6-inch line is significant. Now, let me ask you this, does the 10-inch line that we propose to carry on up, it would tee into the line coming across on Garrett Road, right? The main on Garrett Road?
And the reason I mentioned that, we're looking at that whole quarter.
Right.
And as you know, we're talking breaking it into sections.
Right.
And so if you looked at the long-range plan, which
Right.
we need to be looking, this actually would fit in real good with a continuation on both ends of this particular line.
But this line eventually would end up at Garrett Road, or the plain long-term.
That's kind of the quarter.
What is the size of the line running down Garrett Road, South Garrett Road?
I think they're very similar to this.
No, I'm talking about the new one, the one that cuts across the Old Westmont Road. What is that?
I'd have to look at my map.
That's probably,
I can get
I'll bet it's a
it.
10-inch line, right?
10 is the problem, I'm just guessing, but I can look at that. But I guess what I will say, that this will fit in real nicely and would not have to be reworked when we get to that section. Because I think what we want to do, you mentioned fire protection capacity for everybody. This really meets all of those checkpoints from the engineering perspective.
Now, and one other thing on the fire, as we connect eventually at Garrett Road, if you're connecting 10-inch lines, you create a loop kind of thing from fire. I know from fire protection standpoint, and y'all know more about flow and that kind of thing, but if you create a source where you've got 10-inch water lines that connect each other, and where, if you have a major structure fire and you also, your capacity is not compromised, but you're really pulling the capacity and stuff, having that flow from two big water lines coming from two different directions, that kind of creates a loop, is more of an ideal situation for fighting a major structure fire.
You definitely want loops, like in electric and
Right. Back.
But 10 is not necessarily the only number. What you do hydraulics based under the amount of capacity you need, and pressures and all of that. So this is designed and laid out so that fire protection will be provided at the level that the customers need here in the city, and capacity going on. So it doesn't have to be that. The 10 is a good backbone start, okay?
Mr.
I
Kimball, what
would
have you?
say if you don't have a 10-inch, you can't get the fire protection, but that's what we definitely want to have, make sure we got capacity.
When will we have any fire plugs that go with this?
We'll clean all of that up.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the adjustments, fire protection will be off of this line too. Maybe the same ones. Typically, we run our work with the fire department closely on that. Generally, it's about 400 feet between that and residential, so we'll look at all of those as well.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you so much, Terry, appreciate it. I'm sorry, I left you out. Did you have any questions? I apologize.
Mr. Hall, I'm sorry.
I was all ready to move
We
on.
have another water project.
Well, we do. We do, all right. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go on to our agenda itself, and let's see if we can determine any questions associated with it and any consent items that would be acceptable, so. And we have 3 sets of minutes. Mr. Latimer has blessed them, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. We've
So-
implemented corrections this morning.
Okay, all right, so without objection, consent for those 3?
That's a yeoman amount of work there, too.
It is, too, it is, because they are mostly real minutes as opposed to work session minutes, so.
That's why it finished at about 7:15 this morning.
Okay, if no objection, we'll go with consent on those items. I don't necessarily have any comments for our 16th, meeting on the 16th, but today I will comment, just as a reminder for those who are tuned in, that we will be doing, Monday is a holiday, and we will be doing citywide pickup on Tuesday, so. And also mindful of the weather, because that could change just about everything if everything's icy, so we'll see how that goes. Any comments from any board members that they'd like to have added to the agenda? None? Okay. We have 3 public hearings. 2 of these are public hearings associated with things we have looked at before. Unfortunately, both 307 Apple and 722 Vine were pieces of property that we were unable to burn because they are too close in proximity to other adjoining or to other buildings near them, and so we're going to bring them back, and we will be using Mr. Kemp's people to do the demolition as we did on Curtis Circle. So both of these items are coming back, and we will be very timely in getting them down once the board approves this. But these are the public hearings in consideration of demolition for both those. And the third one is the third public hearing is also the third one for the alcoholic beverages, and we have landed, I believe, in a place that everyone is comfortable, which is to leave everything within the recreation and or entertainment, leisure and recreation district. I'll get it right here in a minute. The leisure and recreation district. So yes, that will be our third public hearing. Any comments on that at this point in time? Anyone wants to share about that? Are we good with that?
We'll just wait till Tuesday.
I'm sorry,
I said, we'll just wait till Tuesday. I talked to Chris a couple of times about it. We'll just wait
Okay,
till Tuesday
all right,
to see
sure.
how it all play out.
I think this draft incorporates everybody's feedback from the last public hearing, and, you know, I'm reminded when you take that standardized test when you're little, they tell you sometimes your first instinct is your best.
Yes.
So we kind of came back to the first instinct.
Right.
But I think the only thing this does, it defines brew pub, it defines small craft brewery based on state statute, and it makes the exemption for those two categories and those two categories only in the leisure and recreation district.
right, okay, good deal, all right. Well, considering there is nothing that's consent worthy anyway, because we have a public hearing, we'll look forward to having that potential discussion on Tuesday. Under mayor's business, I actually have not finalized the proposal itself that would go out to be advertised, but this is a proposal for the sculpture of Cool Papa Bell for the Cornerstone Park Pavilion. It is about a 9 to 12 month process to get that done, so we need to go ahead and advertise RFP, and I will try to finish that up between now and another obligation I've got and get it to you. But I've been just tracking on the details associated with that, but I will get that to you. So, but it's just roughly, you know, the timeline and having a committee and that kind of thing. So, all right, and since I don't have that available to everybody, I guess it's not consent worthy, is it? Board business, we have an agreement with the Municipal Democratic Executive Committee. Both of the next two, Mr. Latimer, you've looked at those agreements, and those are
Yes, ma'am.
standard agreements?
They're ready to go forward.
Okay, all right. Consent on those, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Consideration of agreement with Waste Pro for recycling program. That one's good to go now?
It is.
Okay,
Consent.
all right, consent for that one. And here we have a resolution of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for the TIF expansion for Mr. Castleberry's project of the Guerin project.
Let's leave that off, and
Oh,
we'll have our
yes.
comments Tuesday night as
Okay,
well.
well, and there may be some opportunity, yes, for further discussion about that, so we'll do that. And I believe Mr. Castleberry will be there for additional information. Consideration and appointment of a candidate to the Starkville Municipal Airport Board. We have 2 candidates who are interested in that position, so we have asked them to come and be available on Tuesday for that position and discussion, or I guess, what would we call it? We'd call it interview, I guess, so. And then the other one we have here is consideration of a board resolution thanking and commending the Army National Guard on their work. to
Army
administer-
and Air, because there have been
Okay.
both out there.
All right, well, we need to add that to the Army and Air National Guard on their work to administer COVID shots. So we need to add that to the agenda, Lisa, if you would, please. Okay, consent for that?
Consent.
Consent, okay.
I had sent the resolution to the mayor, so I'll forward it to
I'm sorry,
you.
my bad, I was down for the count yesterday.
I'll get it to you. I'll get it to
Okay. And then we have consideration of Dr. Evan Peacock to the Historic Preservation Commission. He is the only person who's shown an interest in that, so consent for that. Okay. And applying for the local government grant with Mississippi Department of Archives and History. Consent for that one. And then 2 public hearings for amending the Unified Development Code and updating the technical codes. Daniel has done a thorough cover sheet for that, and it is time for us to look. You know, we've had the UDC in place for a little over a year now, so he's had some tweaks he wants to make, and so I think that's entirely appropriate. We also have, and this is just calling for 2 public hearings, and the other one though is it is time for us to adopt the new building code, and so Steen has been working on that one and hoping to do this in conjunction. They talk to one another of sorts, and so we should hopefully have that available to us and be able to move forward with it. So that's what this is putting those 2 together as we work our way to it. So consent for that?
Consent.
Thank you. Under engineering, we have acceptance of a low bid. Is that the one that we have a low bid?
We did.
Low bidder now?
Falcon is the apparent low bidder.
Falcon?
And we had pretty attractive bids. Our unit price for asphalt, which is kind of the main driver of that bid, was $105 a ton, which is the same when we were playing last year.
Okay.
So I feel like we're within budget, and with
I like
checking everything
that.
out, but we'll be recommending to approve approve that, or recommend to go forward with that contract. Everything works. It's okay.
Okay, good.
Consent.
Alrighty. And consideration of acceptance of a low bid for West Point Road Bridge project.
Consent.
Okay? And just a quick aside on that, Chris, we're tracking with the eminent domain or the
That's right.
getting that property available to
The
us.
offer letter went out this week. The deadline for them to accept is today.
Okay.
And if they don't accept, we'll proceed with eminent domain as early as next week.
Okay, all right. I just know that there's a chance of us losing this funding if we don't proceed with that, so. Okay, claims docket, we will skip that one. Acceptance of the financial statements, are we good with that one? Consent?
Consent.
Okay, and then consideration of the lowest bid for financing from Bank First for the lease purchase of our Dodge Chargers, which are going to be good looking. Consent for
And
that?
great interest rate.
HR, Stephanie is here on NAV's behalf. We have consideration to approve a temporary pay increase for Megan Ward at Starkville Utilities. What is that about, Terry? Or Stephanie, either one?
Since last October, Megan's been doing her job plus this other one, and it was just our request to kind of, since it's been that length of time, like Stephanie, it kind of goes outside the normal bill on the policies of 30 or 60 days. It was just an effort, just until we get that slot filled.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Okay. All right, thank you. Consent for that one?
Consent.
Okay. Authorization to hire Kenneth Rogers as a maintenance worker for sanitation.
Consent.
And authorization to hire Erica Rivers as a marketing and sponsorship manager for Parks and Rec.
Consent.
Okay. Brandon's happy. Authorization to hire Marvin, okay, somebody pronounce that for me. Stephanie? Who can pronounce
I
it?
can't pronounce it either.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna let that go,
You've
and
got
I'll
till
learn
Tu-
between
you've
now
got
and...
till Tuesday.
I've got till Tuesday
Darius, I think.
to learn how to pronounce it, okay. Consent for that one. And IT, approval of the yearly purchase of maintenance and consulting labor hours with Garner Computers. And how do they, thank you, we'll do that. How does that,
They support the phone system here at City Hall
Okay.
and Starkville PD as well as some network here. They were actually up here yesterday performing some maintenance, that's regular maintenance, updates, and troubleshooting. And this prepaid labor hour just gives us priority when we call.
okay, all right, thank you. Consent for that one. We have, under police, we've removed item 1. We've got some work to do still on the contract, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Latimer?
That's correct.
Okay, and then we have approval to allow Officer Matthew Lasker to attend field training officer certification class.
Consent.
Consent for that one, okay? And then under utilities, Terry, as usual, has quite a number of them here. Lowest and best quote from Wilson Tree Service. Again, that goes to the cutting the trees and grinding the stumps for that water line on North Montgomery. Consent for that one. Authorization to enter into a license agreement with Oktibbeha Consolidated School District, which I believe, Mr. Latimer, you've blessed that poll agreement. Terry,
Yes, ma'am.
you're comfortable with that poll agreement? Okay. Consent on that one. Authorization to purchase a dump conveyor truck for on-site transport of biosolids at the wastewater plant.
We're going to pull that one, Lisa, right?
Oh, I confirmed yesterday that it's gonna be a legal purchase, but if I find out something different from the state, Sourcewell has been adopted by a state contract,
Okay,
but I couldn't find this particular unit on their list.
okay.
So if you can wait till
So are we
March
pulling it
2nd.
or no?
I'm sorry.
If you can
it was
wait till
emailed
March
yesterday. I didn't know if we got it resolved. I think there's a question on that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure
Apparently
it's a legal purchase.
not resolved yet.
I don't have it in writing from the state yet.
Okay, so we'll pull it till the 2nd. Okay, so we'll pull number 3. And then last but not least, we have acceptance of a low quote for dump body assembly to a recently purchased truck cab chassis. Okay, there we go. All right, and that takes us down to our executive session items, which will be personnel and litigation, and we will deal with that at that point in time. So if there's nothing else from anyone, any discussion from the board on any items? All right, we will be in adjournment, and we will see everyone Tuesday night, the 16th. Be safe and stay warm. It may be hard to do.